Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to the Snowbike channel. I'm going to be doing an update video on this 300SX build. It's a 2023. I bought this in the winter of 2022, 2023. And, back then there wasn't many parts for these. They were kind of a new bike, new engine, a lot of new things. And so that first year, I put together a build video on what I did, how to build this bike. And today I'm going to be showing you the same bike, but with the new changes that I made to it. And I've put about 50 hours on this bike over the last 2 years, 2 winters. Really enjoyed it a lot. It's probably the longest bike that I've kept in my shop, and so I think that says a lot. There's a lot of opinions and debates out there as to whether or not a 300SX is an adequate bike for snowbiking. And I'm here to tell you that yes, it is. Will it out-compete a 450 like this one over here? Nah, not so much, but it makes up for it in being ultra light, ultra nimble, really easy to handle in the woods. And if you like 2 strokes, boy, that's music to your ears compared to the drone of a 4-stroke. So with that, I'm going to show you what I did to the bike, what's different about it. I'll put a link right up here with the build video that I did last winter. And for the most part, things are the same. I did upgrade the kit, which I'll talk about. And then I also bought the 2-stroke performance power kit. And with that, those were kind of the 2 major changes that I have made since the making of that last video. There's a few other little differences, but I'll go into each of them right now. Okay, so first and foremost, the biggest change I made to this bike is the 2024 Timbersled Riot 3 Pro. And new for 2024, this is the Gen 2 version. So what that means, of course, is the rails are narrower. The rails too themselves were cut out slightly different, and there was I believe 2-pound weight savings on the rails alone. The track, of course, is different, and I believe there was a couple pounds savings on the track. And then aside from that, they still have the Fox QS3 IBS shocks, and these have the adjustable clickers on them, and then this rear one actually can lock out, and you can make the kit a lot more planted for those deep days climbing. Now, with all that said, those changes that they made for 2024 saved 12 pounds. And when I weighed this bike with my last kit on it, which was a 2022 Riot 3 Pro, that kit with this bike weighed 316 pounds. And so I'm hoping that with a 12-pound savings on this, that we're going to be somewhere in the 304-pound range, which is very light. New also this year, last year, 2024, they updated the rubber for the spindle. And if you haven't done that upgrade already, do it. It's the best 20 bucks you'll spend for your steering. And you won't notice the difference so much in the deep snow, but you will on the trail. You'll have a lot better handling characteristics. Some of the things that I've done to this bike, again, different. I added the Gravitas Apex panel. This is a lightweight aluminum panel that replaces your number plate, and you've got a lot more options for mounting stuff. So I've got my light attached to it. I've got a little bag here, and then I've got my saw. Talk about thermostats real quick. A lot of options out there nowadays. And this is the Wattman Thermobob. And I've just chosen to use them year after year because they're the originators. They were the ones that thought about building these thermostats for primarily adventure bikes and dual sport bikes. And this was a while ago, before the snow bike scene. And So I've just continued to use their setups. I believe this model is a KT3. If you go onto Wattman's website, they won't have the 300SX listed, at least at the time of this recording. And last winter, they haven't updated their website to show that this fits. And it's a very universal kind of thermostat. It's U-shaped, and there's a lot of ways that you can mount this. But this is the way I have mine mounted. And I'm not running heated bars on this bike. I chose not to. The thermostat that I'm using here is 131 degree Fahrenheit thermostat. And what I've found, at least on my 4-stroke bikes, is that I don't feel the handlebars until they hit about 140. And I just figured I'm not going to add any more complexity to this bike if it doesn't yield a benefit. So that's thermostats. I do recommend getting a bigger tank for the bike. I'm running the Citribes 3.1 gallon tank, and it's been awesome. That'll give you a lot more range than the stock 1.9 gallon SX tank. Real quickly, I guess I'll speak to the difference between the 300XC and the 300SX. They are very, very similar, but also very different. And the one thing that makes them very different is the 300XC has a 6-speed transmission, wide ratio transmission. The 300SX has the close ratio transmission, and that's the one you want. They both will work fine in the snow. The XC is a ripper. It will do just fine. You might just spend more time in second, third, fourth gears, whereas the first gear on this bike is a lot more usable than the XC. And on trails, I can get through all 5 gears, no problem. Now, some of the must-haves, I'll go over real quick. Must-haves for this bike. I would absolutely upgrade your thermostat. The stock thermostat is kind of a funny thermostat. It's actually housed back down in your frame, and that small plastic thermostat doesn't redirect coolant. Instead, it lets a little bit of coolant seep past it when it's cold, and then when it comes to temperature, that thermostat opens up a little bit more and allows more coolant to pass. And so with this, when the bike is cold and warming up, this coolant, the cold coolant, is being redirected back down to the engine faster, and it allows the engine to warm up quicker than the OEM T-stat that seeps coolant slowly, and then you have to wait for the coolant to go through the radiators and then down. This is real handy. I've got my Noco battery dongle set up right here, and it actually tucks up and away really good right there. And on the mornings, what I do is kind of a standard habit. I keep my jump pack right in here in the Riot Timbersled bag, and then I'm able to connect up to this early in the morning, start the bike, put it back in my bag, and then put that away. And I just use a little bit of bungee to help kind of tuck that wire away so that's not dangling and hitting the exhaust or anything. Other must-haves with these 300s, it's been tricky keeping consistent temperatures. And when the first year I ran it with just the radiators, and for most days it was fine. But there were days when the snow's deep, you're climbing big hills, the radiators start to ice up a little bit, and you start to have hot temperatures. And as soon as you get above 150, you really feel the bike kind of dog out and lose power. And so to remedy that, the best solution was to add a tunnel cooler to the tunnel. And right here, I'm running the XRT medium size, and I have it tied into the plumbing on my radiators. So I kept my radiators. You don't need to keep the radiators, and a lot of people opt to remove them. And by doing that, one of the big benefits is all that steam that comes off of the radiators is now gone. So when you come to a stop, you've got no more steam coming up on the front of the bike. I kept the radiators. My thinking is by having all that extra coolant volume, that the bike's temperature swings won't be as severe. And so far it's worked great for me. Another, I would say, must-have is to figure out a way to completely enclose the engine and keep snow and ice from building up and blasting the engine in there. And to do that, I've used this duck canvas, and I've got a video I'll try to post up here that shows how to make these. You know, compared to spending $200 for a PST jacket, you can build these yourself for about 20 bucks. So I'd recommend doing that. I use just bungee balls to tie up to various places on the frame. And again, you know, the main thing is just to try and keep snow from packing in here, and then you know, keeping the engine too cold. So other things I've done to the bike, I'll come around to this side. Again, this is the ECU Reflash Module, and I've got a whole video on this and my thoughts. I'll post somewhere up here. But this is a pretty slick unit. Gives you some different readouts, battery voltage, coolant temperature, and then TPS settings, RPM, tells you what map you're in. You can change between maps there. You can go into extras. And diagnostics, you can read and delete air codes. Pretty slick unit. I've been very impressed with what they've done with this. You don't have to leave this on the bike. You can take it off when you're done, and the maps are then stored on your stock ECU. But this allows you to make changes to your fueling, to your ignition, and to the power valve. And two-stroke performance includes their mapping as well, so you can save your stock map. You can have their maps, and then you can make your own custom maps. And I think you're allowed to store like 10 custom maps. And so it's been really interesting for me to be able to just on the fly change between mapping and compare the stock mapping from 2023 to TSP's maps, and then from there make refinements on those maps to get it where I want it. You know, because we're using these bikes in somewhat of a non-conventional way, you know, KTM built this 300SX for motocross, and we're taking a motocross bike and we're putting a kit on it, and we're running it in some really extreme temperatures, especially up here in Alaska. I think last year our coldest day out riding was 27 below. So with that said, excellent unit, highly recommend. I would almost say this is a must, but it's not. You know, you can definitely get away with running your stock mapping. I just found that the stock mapping was a tad rich off of the bottom, and there was kind of a spot that you had to work through to get into the power with this bike. And by switching to that TSP mapping and their medium compression head, I was able to fix that. Real quick on heads, I ran the medium compression because here in Alaska we just don't ride high elevations. and I didn't want to have to run race gas all of the time. So by running the medium compression head, I did switch gas a little bit. The first year I did run 90 pump gas, and I'm going to show you real quick the difference on the pistons. I've been doing the first top end rebuild I did at 20 hours, and then the second top end rebuild I did at 30 hours. And this is the stock head with the stock insert, and it ran really clean. You know, there was no excessive buildup of carbon anywhere. You had that kind of caramelized marshmallow look, and I always felt like the stock mapping and this dome setup, it was a little fat off of the bottom, but it was maybe a tad lean when you were running wide open throttle. And that's just what I found. So again, here with the stock setup, I ran 60-to-1 using Motorex oil, 90 pump gas. The gas that we get up here is non-ethanol. And on the Meteor piston, and I'll talk about that here in a second, I ran the recommended two-stroke performance 50-to-1 with Motorex, and then I started blending VP 110 with 90 pump, and I was doing 1 gallon to 4 gallons of 90 pump to get 5 gallons, 5-gallon mix. I just needed to bump up the octane just a little bit just to ensure I wasn't having any detonation problems with running a slightly higher compression head than the stock. Real quick on the two-stroke performance piston kit, they include everything that you need. This is an old kit that I had laying around with leftover gaskets, but very tidy, very nicely packaged. And they include a cast piston for Meteor pistons, which is actually, I learned, just down the road from Vertex in Italy. And ironically, they use the same rings as the Vertex, the rings made in Japan. And in the kit, they'll include these easy clips, and they'll also include, the standard round clip. And for the first time ever, I tried using these easy clips, and man, their name says it all. It was a breeze to put those in, super easy. So I'll be doing that again. So overall, those are kind of the changes that I made to the bike that were the largest. I upgraded the kit to the Gen 2 Riot 3, and I added the TSP Reflash Module with their mapping, and I've since kind of refined it with what I like. And I think that's about it. If you've watched my original video, I go over a lot of different things on the bike, and I talk about keeping this pipe warm. If you don't run any kind of pipe guard or wrap the pipe or ceramic coat the pipe, you'll run into cold pipe syndrome, and you got to keep these things hot. They like to stay warm. And so what I've done is I've wrapped the first 8 inches with automotive header wrap, and then I cover it partially with the exhaust guard, and then I run the carbon guard over it, and then I also add just a little bit more exhaust wrap right here just to protect your leg from burning a hole. Other things that I've done to the bike, I'm running the FMF factory pipe with the FMF Power Core 2.1 silencer. I feel like that's been a good combo. I've heard a lot of people talking about the PC pipes providing the best power. I'm tempted to try it. I've known other people that are using different pipes. There's a lot of different pipes out there, but this setup's worked really well. Oh, one little pro tip for you. So in my bag, I carry my tools. I carry my jump pack. I carry a little tug cord in case someone goes in a creek. I carry a little handsaw for cutting up trees. And then the last thing that I carry in my pack is a small little bottle of oil, just in case I run out of gas and I need to mix some of my buddies' gas that are maybe running 4 strokes. And this is exactly enough to run 2.5 gallons of mix. And I've already pre-measured it, so it's kind of ready to go. And if this is already empty, I can throw that in there, add my buddy's gas, and you know, get myself back. Never had to do that yet, but it's just a little pro tip in case you're running one of these 300s in a group of 450s. Real quick, I'll talk about the gearing that I've done with the Riot 3 on the 300. This is gearing that I ran last year on my 2023 Aero 3 Gen 2. And I'm not going to take the belts off, but I'll show you. These are the gears, of course. Timbersled sends the kits out from the factory made. They're set up already with 22 on the top and then 23 down on the bottom, 23 tooth. And that's a great gearing for, you know, 450s and 500s. But what I found works best with this kit is a 22 tooth up here and then a 24 tooth down here. And that actually further reduces the gearing, so much so that it just helps the bike stay in power a little bit better. I always felt like the stock gearing was just a tad too tall for the 300SX. And by reducing it, I've gotten a lot more of that initial snap that I wanted off the low end with the 300. Now, by doing this, if you run 22, 24, keep the stock jack shaft, and then run the recommended 13 tooth on your counter shaft, this bike will top out at maybe the mid 40s. I would say like 42 to 45 miles per hour, which is slower than, you know, the taller gearing that these kits come set up with. To me, it was worth the cost of a gear reduction to lose a little bit of top end speed, because I wanted this bike to be snappy. I wanted to be able to, you know, whack the throttle, get the front end to come up. And, you know, in the woods, it really helps having that low end hit to be able to, you know, quick snap the throttle and then, you know, burn around a tree or make a quick U-turn or do whatever you need to do. Some other things I've done to the bike, I've added the throttle body protector. I also added the power valve protector. The plastic one I broke right away the first season. A stick had come through and like hit it in a way that it actually like broke it off. And then I got kind of nervous about that because there is a connection here for the power valve. And, you know, if you disrupt that, you're gonna probably have to limp home. Now, I'll talk real quick about airbox, what I've done. Right now, I've got the Selkirk intake in there, and I run 2 covers. That's a freshie cover underneath, and then I take old covers that maybe have holes in them, repair them with a little bit of Aqua Seal, and then run that as like an outer filter. I do recommend double bagging these. If these skins come into contact in areas, the vibration will actually wear holes in the filter. And so you've got to be really careful. Make sure that you look over the filters every year. Every maybe 10 hours, I'd probably look them over. And just make sure you're not ingesting snow. The Air Force Velocity Stack, that's this guy. It's a lot smaller profile, and I haven't tried running this yet, but I've known people that have, And I forget, I think on their website, they don't explicitly say that these fit the 300s. This intake is out of this 450 here. And on the 450 intakes, they're the same as the 300SX. You can get away with running the same intake on this bike. Between the two, I kind of prefer the Air Force Velocity Stacks design. It's just a lot smaller and a little tighter package inside of the airbox. Back behind here, I've cut away. This is a question that a lot of people ask on the 300s, what to do with the airbox. And so I purposefully cut out this area of plastic, and then I use that same canvas that I'm using for the engine armor, for the engine jacket, and cut out a piece and then just used a rivet gun and riveted this piece in place. And there's plenty of clearance right here between the airbox and the nozzle on my tank, but it's also soft material, and if it does come into contact, you know, it's not gonna hurt anything. The track, this 3-inch track does kick up a lot of snow back in this area, and so anything you can do to kind of protect the airbox from more snow entering from the back, that's always the best that I've found. But also, meanwhile, down below here, you can see that any snow that does accumulate inside of the airbox is going to just fall out the bottom. I added the Acerbis case covers, and with that, I was just hoping to try and keep the transmission oil as warm as possible. And so down here, you'll notice I add a little bit of foam in between the skid plate and the engine case on the bottom. And I'm just trying to, you know, eat up as much of that space as possible so that it doesn't just pack with snow and become a huge ice block down the bottom. I'm running the Molecule skid plate, and Brock Star, he's down in Utah, he's reworked these forks, and man, the magic, whatever he's doing down there, he's got it figured out. You know, for the cost of what he charges to rework your valves on the shocks, he's got it dialed down, and I would highly recommend his work. He's done an excellent job with that. The wrap itself, this is a Deviant ink wrap, and super easy to apply. I've actually got a video I'll post up here maybe that shows how to install these wraps. And if you haven't, go check out their website. They've got a customizer tool. You can get in there and actually pick out the wrap that you like, and then change out the colors any way that you want. And then if you want to work with them and add logos, they'll get you set up pretty easy to do. You can actually add logos yourself, but towards the end of the purchase, they'll actually coordinate with you and just make sure, they'll send you a proof, and they'll make sure that you're getting exactly what you ordered. Some of the other things that I've done to protect the airbox, on the 23 plus bikes, they have this cutout area, and I really do like it when you flip the bike or you need to flip it over. It's just nice being able to have something right here to grab onto and help with flipping it over. But this area, I do block it out because, you know, snow is going to go right through there and down into your airbox and load up your airbox. And so I just cut out pieces of foam and push them in there like this. So it still allows you to use this area as a handle, but you're just blocking that part out so that not so much, you know, so much snow doesn't go down in there. One of the other upgrades that I did to the bike that was well worth it, we had a couple failures with the new KTM kill switches, and we started ditching them and then actually adding these moto-minded BBS bomber switches. and it's just a much better product and made out of aluminum, very durable. And so that's it, I think. If you've got questions about this build, let me know down in the comments. I'd be curious. Every year there's a lot of new people that are building these for the first time, and over the last 3 or 4 years I've been building different two-strokes. I had a 500 BRC for a few years, and now this 300SX, and I like to think that I've kind of figured out the secret sauce for building these. And it doesn't take much, you know, compared to the 450s, but the main thing is just making sure that you're keeping adequate temperatures on your bike. If you're running below 100, that's too cold. If you're running above 150, that's too warm. You really want to try and find that sweet spot and stay in that 130, 140 range. And I would say figure out the gearing, make sure that you're able to take full advantage of your gearing options that are out there. And then, of course, wrap up the engine with some kind of blanket, and consider that XRT engineered tunnel cooler. That's, I would say, a must for these 300s. And I think that's about it. Of course, the thermostat. But aside from those items, I think those are the must-haves, and then the rest is, you know, optional for you for comfort. But this is how I've set my bike up. And if you're building one of these right now, let me know what you think, what things you found, what works for you. It seems like every region has kind of their own conditions, and you know, people build these differently, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I think, part of what you are expecting or wanting from the bike, and then also you know, just general geographic differences and snow and coldness. So with that, I hope this helps. Give the video a like if you want, and subscribe. I'm trying to build up this channel and make it the best that I can, and it helps if you would subscribe. So appreciate your time, and good luck with your builds, and happy brapping.